Coming to get you, Barbara.
Oh, man. Plan 9 from Outer Space. I've heard a lot about this one, but I have to admit, I was unprepared for the experience of watching it. I've heard it called the worst movie of all time, or one of them anyway, and I've also heard it called a cult favorite, a movie that is underrated, and for what it lacks in quality, it makes up for in heart. I've also heard that it's so bad that it's good, and that it's fun to watch for its campiness. Well, I have to wonder what exactly is wrong with the people who think that this is fun to watch. I guess I'll never understand the "it's so bad it's good" mindset, as every time I've watched a movie described as thus, I've come back with the thought, no, it's just bad. And Plan 9 from Outer Space is bad. It was directed by Ed Wood Jr., an eccentric filmmaker who had a lot of passion and drive for making movies, but no talent at all. This is probably his most famous movie, but of course for all the wrong reasons. Ed Wood is even more interesting than just a guy who made some shitty movies, though. For one, he was openly a transvestite, and in the climate of the 50s, that must have been rough on him. But I guess no one wanted to mess with him because the other interesting thing about him is that he was in the U.S. Marine Corps and was a decorated war hero during World War II. The more you know, eh? Well, if you've never seen Plan 9, you might wonder what it has to do with zombies, since from the title it sounds like it's about aliens. And it is about aliens, but it's also about zombies. Yeah, it was the 50s all right. The original title of the movie was Grave Robbers from Outer Space, and the opening narration of the film uses this title. There's a story that the movie was partially financed by a Baptist church who objected to the title Grave Robbers from Outer Space, and that's why it was changed. But the rumor is untrue. Actually, it's believed by credible sources that the Baptists actually came up with the title Grave Robbers from Outer Space, and that it was later changed in an effort to avoid paying the church. So the truth is pretty much the opposite of the legend you heard. So anyway, the movie. Yeah, what can I say? It's as bad as you can imagine, and it's not just sloppy filmmaking. Though there's plenty of that, as evidenced by the numerous shots where the boom mic or other equipment is visible, the cheap props and sets, you can see the cardboard gravestones get knocked over, it's just nuts. Ed Wood didn't like to film any scene more than once, so any mistakes in the take wound up in the movie, including a part where one cast member is barely controlling her laughter at the dialogue of another. He also wasn't big on editing, so you're really seeing a film that was shot as is. But the story is also ridiculously bad. From the opening narration, it's confusing. The narrator seems to be telling you that the story takes place in the future, and beats that into your head over and over, including the now infamous line, "These future events will affect you in the future." Yeah, no shit. Well, then there's a "let's go back to that fateful day," so is it the future or the past? At the end, the narrator is no help either, as he seems to be telling a story that already happened, but then at the very last second reverts back to it being the future. The narrator never shuts up either, talking over every scene. Sometimes I wasn't sure whether the narration was added to make the confusing plot easier to follow, or if the narration was written as being badly over-detailed and they had to shoot scenes to match it. I kind of think it might have been a mixture of both. There's also a lot of stock footage in the movie, especially when the military fights the flying saucers. Yeah, there's flying saucers. And it's just stock footage of artillery, probably from World War II. Another thing about the flying saucers is that they're very inconsistent in size and shape. They're toys on a string, so they look pretty small, but although they're clearly saucer-shaped, characters keep referring to them as cigar-shaped. Why? I have no idea. But when the ships land, they look rectangular. Okay, whatever. At this point, you give up hope of any consistency. Hell, between shots, it goes from daytime to nighttime and back to daytime, so there's really no continuity. The plot just makes no sense. Basically, these aliens have come to Earth, and they're all pissed off. Partially because they think that humans are stupid, and partly because our governments refuse to acknowledge their presence. They claim that we're eventually going to build a bomb that will blow up the sun and destroy the entire universe, so they're coming here to take over and make sure this never happens. They choose to do this by raising the dead, because, sure, why not? So you figure that's actually pretty cool idea. I mean, that could work on that on a simple level, have an alien invasion, but instead of the aliens actually invading, they bring the dead back to life and use an army of zombies to destroy humanity without having to get their hands dirty. Sounds pretty cool, but the aliens only managed to create 3 zombies in the entire movie. The first 2 zombies also look and act like vampires, so there's another bit of weirdness. The female zombie vampire is played by Maëla Nurmi, aka Vampira, a TV host and occasional actress. She sort of just disappears after a while, never to return. At the end, a human character even mentions her disappearance, and basically they go, she's probably dead now. The other zombie is advertised as being played by Bela Lugosi, but man, not quite. Ed Wood was a huge fan of Bela Lugosi and wanted to revitalize his career, but Bela Lugosi died in 1956. This movie came out in 1959, so you do the math. There's a bit of stock footage of Lugosi used, which was actually from another movie that Ed Wood was working on, but most of the time he's played by a guy who's younger, thinner, and taller, and to hide his face he walks around holding a cape in front of it like an idiot. The third zombie happens when this big fat police chief played by wrestler Tor Johnson gets killed by the aliens. The aliens can barely even control the zombies. They use a gun to control them, but they're really bad at it. The aliens all wear these dopey, stereotypical, futuristic jumpsuits, except for the head guy, who wears a medieval tunic with a picture of a battle axe on it. I guess they raided the wardrobe from the studio next door. Either that or the head alien is an idiot. For a world invasion, it's the shittiest plan ever, as the aliens basically create 3 zombies who mess around in a graveyard in California, and then basically die when some guys beat up the aliens. I could go on and on about this movie's flaws, I really could. But it would be pointless. It's bad, it's really bad, but if there's a type of bad that is fun to watch, I have yet to see it, because I had a hard time sitting through this mess. Possibly the nicest thing I could say about Plan 9 from Outer Space is that it's not the worst movie I've ever seen, as that title rests firmly in the hands of Blackenstein. I give Plan 9 from Outer Space a 2 out of a possible 10.